UFC Fight Night, Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill. Welcome to another UFC prediction and analysis video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris as usual, fight by fight breakdown and analysis from that betting perspective specifically. We want to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action toward the end of the video as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks. Make sure you hit the like button on this video. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. For this UFC Fight Night, it's taking place at the UFC Apex. We have 12 fights overall, 7 of them on the prelims, 5 of them on the main card. Let's get started with our prelims, looking at fight number 1, Takashi Sato versus Themba Gorimbo. For this fight, Sato is coming in on a 3-fight losing streak. He lost to Brian Battle back in August. He's introduced as a striker. He's a southpaw, a bit karate-like in his stance. He's light on the feet, a lot of in and out movement, a lot of fakes. He's trying to set that shot up. He can put on the pressure, though. He can close distance. Doesn't really move his head much, though, right? He absorbs a lot more than he dishes out. I don't know if that's the case statistically, but the eye test says that's true. That's always concerning for sure. He does have some judo, but don't really expect him to land takedowns. We see the numbers there at less than half a takedown per fight. His takedown defense isn't that great either. So we have a bit of a one-dimensional fighter, pretty straightforward in his approach, not really much diversity to his game. Themba Gorimbo, on the other hand, lost his debut back in February to AJ Fletcher. He has a decent striking wrestling approach to his game. On the feet, regular jab usage, can definitely take his time. Again, look for his shots in his own right. Pretty composed from what I've seen. Generally, a slower, more tactical approach to his striking. Once he starts to get going, he can really start exploding, coming forward with the combinations. He will lose a bit of control, will lose a bit of technique once he starts doing that. But he does have takedown attempts that are an active part of his game. Solid top control. He is okay with it, a bit of a lay and pray type of style, as opposed to aggressively looking for a ground and pound. Good cardio as well, but again, that pretty solid striking wrestling approach from what I've seen. Close fight, of course, as the odds would indicate. This fight is a pick'em. Both of these guys are primarily strikers. Both of them, I think, are going to have their moments. I am mindful of Themba Gorimbo's 4-inch reach advantage in this fight. I think that's going to be a huge factor for him in order to keep Takashi Sato out of range. I'm also mindful of Gorimbo's wrestling, as I mentioned. He landed 2 takedowns in his debut against a wrestler in AJ Fletcher. He was also very intentional about shooting for those takedowns, about making it a part of his game plan. I mentioned Takashi Sato is a bit one-dimensional in his style, and I mentioned the takedown defense on his end is not that great, just 60%. What that tells me is that Gorimbo should be able to use the ground game to score some rounds in his favor. And again, Gorimbo should be able to dictate essentially where this fight goes for the most part. I think he just has more ways to win the fight. So, and then on top of that, the X factor, fighters performing better in their second fight compared to their debuts. So I'm thinking about that as well. All things considered, I'm looking at Themba Gorimbo as the more complete MMA fighter, the more intentional wrestler, and the striking is anyone's battle. So I'm going with Themba Gorimbo to start us off here.
Yeah, this is hard, man. This is really 50-50. I look at Takashi Sato. I see a guy that's been doing this for a really long time since he's been doing this for over 10 years, and he's 32. And his last 3 fights were 3 losses, but against good competition. This fight is definitely a step down in terms of who Takashi has been fighting. And he does have a really good outside trip. He landed one against Bilal. In his previous fights in Pancrase, you do see another one there. So he definitely has some grappling in him. But again, he wants to keep it on the feet. He wants to box. He wants to box the whole fight. He's mainly a boxer. Good hands, good technique. Fighting Gorimbo, who again, second fight in the UFC. Grappling base. He wants to use his grappling, his athleticism. And he's going to be the more athletic guy in this fight. He's going to be the the guy going for the takedowns. And if he can get some takedowns, I could see him riding out some top time. For me, it's a tough fight because I actually think Takashi Sato is the better fighter. I actually think he has competent striking, decent grappling. But I think Gorimbo has a grappling style that he shoots for takedowns, shoots low. That's how you get Sato down. And I think he's going to be able to get Sato down. Again, if he can get Sato down, he's going to have a hard time on the feet with Takashi, with the striking, with the boxing. But I'm banking on Gorimbo making some good shots here, getting the takedown, drag him on the mat. Sato does not have the best takedown defense. He has been finished by strikes a couple times. He has been finished by submissions a couple times. So again, yeah, it's a tough fight. It's a tough fight, but I'm going to lean towards Gorimbo getting his wrestling going, getting some takedowns, rough him up, tiring him out. But again, I do think this is a fight that can go either way.
Second fight, Natália Silva versus Victoria Leonardo, women's flyweight fight here. Natália Silva coming in as a huge favorite at -900. She's 2-0 in the UFC now after she beat Teresa Bleda back in November. She's introduced as a Taekwondo fighter. She's light on her feet. She fights from the outside, clean technique, really quick as well. Quick in her movement, quick in her striking, quick in her combinations. Has a kick-heavy game, good power in her attack as well. I like that her movement is constant. Her pace is pretty consistent as well. Good takedown defense, good balance, good IQ with defending those takedowns. In her last fight, she was taken down, but she was able to reverse position. So again, just speaking to that IQ. In her debut, she landed 2 takedowns as well. Also has 7 submission victories to her name. That's half of her victories. So you're looking at a well-versed prospect. Plus, she has great cardio on top of that. And again, huge favorite against Victoria Leonardo, who has a unanimous decision win over Mandy Boom back in her last fight in July. Pretty basic. Basic in her stand-up, bit of a herky-jerky movement, mostly ineffective movement at that. Doesn't really look comfortable on the feet, but she does commit to that forward pressure. She is going to force her way forward. She is going to look for those takedowns. And if she lands it, we see the numbers there at 1.71 per fight. She's pretty strong on top. She can keep you down. I won't spend too much time here. I mean, I think this one should be pretty easy for Natália Silva. I don't anticipate her having a problem anywhere in this fight. Again, Leonardo's going to want to take the fight to the ground. I don't see Silva having a problem defending those takedowns. And then on the feet, Natália Silva is significantly better. So I think you can lock this one in. -900 is obviously very steep for any fight, but Natália Silva probably wins this fight 99 times out of 100. Silva's my pick.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Obviously not right now, but I think that Natália Silva has a lot of Shevchenko in her. Some traits, good striking, good wrestling, good takedown defense, good grappling, good submissions. She has that Shevchenko style that she's going to be far too much for Leonardo in this fight. Leonardo is one of the most basic fighters. She utilizes her physical strength on fighters, but at the UFC level, it's not going to really work. Just kind of trying to bully girls and just being the stronger girl in there. It's not going to work at this level. And Silva is elusive on the feet. Should beat her everywhere. More dangerous fighter. Got a finish in her last fight. I think she will get a finish here as well. So I like Natália Silva as well.
Third fight of our prelims. Let's talk Chase Hooper versus Nick Fiore. Lightweight fight here. Chase Hooper lost to Steve Garcia back in October. We know his striking is not the best. We know he leaves his chin up. He's kind of slow, kind of chinny as well. Something that he is actively working on. Still very young. We know he's trained with Wonder Boy in the past, for example. Still improving fight over fight, but the striking, we have to call it what it is. It's not that good. Expect a grapple heavy attack out of him. He's getting comfortable. Sorry, he is comfortable, I should say. Grappling, whether it's on top or whether it's off of his back, kind of a by any means necessary type of approach. As long as he's on the ground, he feels okay. Good at scrambling, good at throwing up submission attempts, good at reversing positions. Really tricky down there. More so of a grappler, though, as opposed to a wrestler. You look at the numbers there, 1.5 takedowns per fight. which tells you that he can get it to the ground. But again, not the strongest wrestler per se. Again, I will highlight very tricky and crafty as a grappler, pretty decent cardio tank. So you do have to be careful going up against Chase Hooper, especially when on the ground. Nick Fiore, on the other hand, lost his debut to Mateus Rebecki back in July. He's introduced as a jiu-jitsu and a Muay Thai fighter. Good jiu-jitsu to that point. Good overall ground game. The takedowns are there as well. He did land one in his debut, although he was taken down 3 times. So I think that's going to be a compelling point for this fight. He's good at improving position in his own right. He's good at scrambling in his own right. Pretty aware defensively as well, which has a lot of implications for this fight. The striking is pretty decent kicks, a lot of switch stance, covers up pretty well, but patient more than anything. He fights from the outside. He's going to use his kicks to keep distance. He likes to fight from the outside. Close fight here. Chase Hooper was the favorite at one point. Nick Fiore is the favorite now. Neither fighter, in my opinion, is really reliable to count on for a win. That alone should tell you want to stay away from this one from a betting perspective. With striking, I do expect Hooper to be the aggressor. I think he's going to try to prove something with respect to potential improvements he's made with his striking. With grappling, hard to say who is definitively the better grappler. What I will say is that their grappling might be a stalemate. Again, Fiore really aware defensively, Hooper really crafty offensively or defensively. So it might be a stalemate. I feel like it's both of their strong suits. With the wrestling, I'm going to give that edge to Nick Fiore. I think his takedowns are more effective. Again, Hooper just has been bad historically at landing takedowns. Plus the physical strength, I'm going to assume, is still not there for Chase Hooper. Anything can happen, definitely, in this fight, but I do like Nick Fiore a bit more. Pretty much just as young as Chase Hooper, 23 versus 25. So Fiore in his own right can exponentially improve fight over fight the same way that Hooper can, right? And then when we compare what we're actually seeing, I think that Nick Fiore is the better striker, the better wrestler, and a stalemate the grappling. I think that Fiore has, more ways to win the fight, essentially, especially with the way that he strikes from distance. I think that could frustrate Hooper and make Hooper unable to bring the fight to the mat. I think he can avoid those takedowns, be the better striker, potentially land takedowns of his own. And again, his grappling IQ is high enough where I don't anticipate him getting caught by Hooper with anything tricky. So I'm going to go Nick Fiore on this one, more of an analytical pick than anything else. I will definitely avoid this from a betting perspective, though.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with Chase Hooper fights because, again, he could change so much between fights. In that Philippe Colares fight, he looked really, really good. Every fight before that, to me, he looked really, really bad. If you really go through his fights before that, Steven Peterson lost pillar to post. Peter Barrett, he won by heel hook. But if I remember correctly, he was losing that fight, man. He was in trouble. Alex Caceres lost that fight. Daniel Tamor had him on like wobbly legs, hurt him really bad in that fight. And then he came back and but he's been looking really bad. Yes, he's coming back on these guys, but now he's fighting a guy that has some grappling, another BJJ guy as well, that should be able to deal with the grappling attacks from Chase. But again, with Chase, you got to be careful because if this guy does some exercise and lifts some weights and somehow looks stronger, he could be a much better fighter than we're accustomed to. He's so skinny. This guy, he's in terrible shape, right? So if this guy actually fixes that part of the game, it's going to allow him to grapple better, get takedowns, be more conditioned as the fight goes on. But it's tough to go with Chase, man. I always go against Chase. I just don't think he's UFC ready. Even on his fight on the Contender Series, he was getting beaten bad, and then he came back there. I don't know, man. I don't think he can do it here because Nick has the grappling ability to avoid that submission. And on the feet, the wrestling is on the Nick side, the strength. He should be able to dictate where the fight goes. So I'm going to go with Nick Fiore for the win here. But it is a fight you got to be careful with because you don't know what Chase has been doing. And he just needs a little bit to be a much better fighter because he's fighting these guys. Like it looks like he can't lift 50 pounds, right? And he's fighting these guys and he's doing pretty decent. So if he comes in shape, if he comes in serious, if he hires someone that trains him, he like physically, he might be the pick this week, right? But we don't know. So I'm gonna go Nick Fiore. I just think that being the better fighter all around should dictate the wrestling and has a big striking advantage.
Fight number 4 of our prelims, Ilir Latifi versus Rodrigo Nascimento. For Latifi, he beat Alexei Oleinik back in October. He's on a 2-fight win streak now. Shorter, stockier heavyweight. He's going to be at a height and reach disadvantage in most of his fights. We see that that's the case here as well. 4 inches in height, 7 inches in reach. Former Swedish national team wrestler. That's going to be where his strength is. That is going to be where he finds his advantages. He's also trained a lot with Daniel Cormier just to legitimize that wrestling approach. 2 takedowns per fight. I mean, we see the numbers there. This is over 15 UFC fights. 8 takedowns landed in his last 3 fights. So just very consistent in that respect. On the feet, not really the most active striker. We see the numbers supporting that, but he does have power like most heavyweights do, and he has a pretty sharp calf kick as well that he uses effectively. On the feet, he will switch stance a lot as well. He'll sometimes eat shots in favor of closing the distance, of landing the clinch, sort of pushing you up against the cage, and then again, looking for that takedown. So again, just a consistent fighter, if nothing else. Rodrigo Nascimento, on the other hand, had a split decision win over Tanner Boser back in September. He's introduced as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. Solid striker, good jab, heavy right hand, good pressure. He, decent overall Muay Thai. His kicks are solid as well. Look for level changes from him. The fakes are there as well. He's going to want to work his way into the clinch, close the distance, good clinch, strong clinch at that. He can land takedowns in those situations as well. 5 takedowns landed in 5 UFC fights, but that is a little bit front-loaded. 3 takedowns landed in his last fight, which is pretty impressive. He is good on the ground. Going back to his jiu-jitsu background, I like his top control. He will look for those submissions pretty actively. We see the submission average number reflect that. And on top of that, 6 of his 9 professional wins are via submission. So again, can be definitely crafty and dangerous down there. These are 2 fighters that are good on the ground in very different ways. Latifi, definitely the better pure wrestler. Nascimento, definitively the better grappler. I'd probably give Nascimento the striking advantage here. Again, not only the physical advantages with the height and reach, but also, he produces more offense. He strikes at a higher pace. He's, trying to do more with his striking. I think the key to this fight is going to be how true is Rodrigo Nascimento's 100% takedown defense on paper. Never really gone up against a wrestler before. So we're going to have to see how he actually looks against an Ilir Latifi who gets 2 takedowns a fight against everyone, right? So, a hard fight to predict. My gut is telling me that Latifi's slower pace can work to his advantage. My gut is telling me that Latifi is going to be able to land those takedowns, win rounds via ground control as a better wrestler. But I'm kind of going against my gut in this one. I actually am going to predict Nascimento getting it done. Again, 4 inches in height, 7 inches in reach. I can't ignore that, especially that Nascimento has a really solid jab. I think that's going to be able to keep Latifi off of him with respect to landing takedowns. And again, Nascimento is just more reliable with the striking. It wouldn't surprise me if Nascimento was even able to land a takedown or 2 of his own later on in the fight when both guys are tired. From a betting perspective, you're potentially looking at dog or pass. Just because it is a heavyweight fight, it can get really boring, and Latifi can make it really predictable if he starts landing takedowns. But from a prediction perspective, I am going to go with the favorite, Rodrigo Nascimento. Better striking, keep the distance, more reliable in that respect. Rodrigo Nascimento is my pick.
Yeah, this is another good one. It's not going to be exciting, but this could be Latifi's last fight in the UFC. So Definitely going to tune in. Latifi has that wrestling base. He's going to be able to shoot for the takedowns. Really strong guy, compact. One of the shorter heavyweights. And if he can get some wrestling going, which I believe he's going to be able to get some takedowns here, he should be able to ground out or pound out Nascimento for at least a round there. But I see as the fight goes on, takedowns are going to be hard. We saw Nascimento in the Bordeaux fight. Had a tough first round, but came out second round, outstriking Bordeaux, pretty much put a hurting on him, showed his cardio, because the first round was really rough for him at that point. And then he came back, which is what I wanted to see, his cardio at that pace. Being a big guy, the fact that he showed me that he could still go as the fight goes on is a big thing for me. Latifi does slow down. A big red flag on the Latifi side is this guy's 40 years old, and he's going to be fighting a guy that could definitely outstrike him, having that 7-inch reach. But also in the grappling, this Latifi guy, being a bigger guy, might be able to just out-grapple, out-wrestle him just because of his size, win some of the scrambles just because of his size and his reach and his length. So I'm going to go Nascimento here. I think he gets it done. I should feel confident, but again, it is a heavyweight fight.
Fight number 5, let's talk Orion Cosce versus Gilbert Urbina. Welterweight fight here. Orion Cosce, unanimous decision win over Blood Diamond. That was back in July, so almost a year since his last fight. Decent movement, although he is flat-footed. He comes forward a lot, has a good pop in his punches. He's going to overthrow pretty much on everything. He's putting his all into his striking. He has shown more patience, more poise in his last fight, but still could be a tendency of his. Good level changes. He is going to aggressively look for that takedown. He's a wrestling state champion, just to legitimize the wrestling credentials. 6 takedowns landed in 3 UFC fights. Decent top control. You always want to watch for his cardio, though. Doesn't really have the best cardio tank historically. Expect him to slow down drastically after that first round. So let's see if that's something that he's worked on. And he's going up against Gilbert Urbina. Hasn't fought since the Ultimate Fighter finale back in August 2021. Lost to Brian Battle at that time. He is a decent striker. Likes to come forward. Solid power in his striking. Good long jab. The kicks are there as well. He's going to want to bring the fight to the ground, though. Grappling specialist, has that smothering type of grappling in him. Good body lock, decent takedowns as well. He's aggressive with his top control. So, has some skill set on paper, definitely. I think this is going to be a fight where either fighter can capitalize on some weaknesses from their respective opponents. Cosce, to me, just isn't a good striker. Urbina can definitely take advantage of that, take advantage as well of the physical advantages he has, 4 inches in reach, another 4 inches in height. He can take advantage of that. Both fighters are susceptible to giving up takedowns. Cosce, to me, is the stronger wrestler, so that can be something that Cosce takes advantage of. But ultimately, I'm going to have to side with Gilbert Urbina on this one, mainly because, again, Cosce, just not a reliable fighter, and more importantly, completely unreliable cardio. I can picture Cosce landing takedowns, having a great first round, but I can picture Urbina using his grappling knowledge, using his scrambling to either avoid the danger or to work his way back up. And then, again, that gas tank. Urbina wins round 2, win round 3, potentially finishes the fight beforehand with the better striking, potentially landing takedowns of his own, potentially landing a submission if Cosce's tired. Again, Cosce is just a very unreliable fighter for me, so it'd be very hard for me to pick him. And I think that Urbina, on top of that, has some skill set that he can take advantage of. And it's been over a year since his last fight, so I'm going to have to assume he's doing some good work at the age of 27. So Gilbert Urbina is going to be my pick to get it done.
Yeah, this is a good fight, man. When you look at Gilbert Urbina, it's a really well-rounded guy, not really great anywhere. But one thing I did notice is in a lot of his fights, for him to overcome a lot of these guys, he turns to his grappling. He turns to his grappling advantage on these guys, whether it be a big advantage or a slight advantage. He really does turn to that grappling to change these fights. And this fight, I don't think he can do that. I think Orion Cosce has the better Wrestling, the stronger guy, that he should be able to dictate where the fight goes. I think Orion Cosce is going to be the one going for the takedowns. And I think this fight's going to come down to who's going to be able to dog it out in that third round. I can see it being even going into the third. I think they both have cardio. I don't think they both have the best cardio, albeit Urbina came in short notice for that fight against Battle. But he did look in that second round really gassed. But again, it was a short notice fight. So he definitely had time to prepare for this one. So did Cosce. Cosce showed improvements in his cardio from that fight. He fought a dangerous guy. I think it was Philip Rowe, a dangerous striker. But Urbina's not dangerous in the striking. So even if he does gas out, Urbina's not that dangerous there. So I think he can kind of get a second wind and finish the fight here. 3 rounds. I think we'll go decision, but I like Orion Cosce here to tough it out, get some takedowns. I could even see him winning all 3 rounds, to be honest. So I'm going with Orion Cosce to win this fight.
6th fight of our prelims, Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Vanessa Demopoulos. For Kowalkiewicz, she is on a 2-fight winning streak now at this point. She beat Savannah Gomez Juarez back in November. Veteran, right? Technically sound in her stand-up. Her striking looks rejuvenated. She has that Muay Thai style of approach. Very diverse in her striking as well. Bit of a point fighter, likes a technical fight, solid movement, solid combinations. But, she's showing in her past couple fights really good forward pressure. Showing that she's comfortable in the clinch lately. Takedown's not really part of her game. Very much a striker. Consistent cardio as well. But again, her movement, her pressure, her striking, her confidence, her game plan, these are all things that have looked rejuvenated during her 2-fight winning streak. So, let's see how she looks here, because there's still some flags, right? She's still 37 years old, so she could still be on the decline, but looks rejuvenated. Vanessa Demopoulos, on the other hand, 3-fight winning streak. She beat Maria Oliveira back in November. She's introduced as a jiu-jitsu and a Muay Thai style fighter. Usually a high-paced fighter, usually likes to come forward and engage with her opponents. Decent low kick as well. She has been in 5-round fights in the past, so no questions whatsoever with her cardio. Doesn't really have the best striking defense, though. She's a bit more on the brawling side of things as opposed to the technical side of things with her striking. Her strength is in her jiu-jitsu. She is a high-level grappler. Wouldn't consider her to be the strongest wrestler. The numbers will definitely support that. Less than a takedown per fight, less than 20% on the accuracy side of things. So she may have issues actually landing the takedown, but she was able to land 3 takedowns in her last fight. So it looks like, that could be something that she has gotten better at. Ultimately, Demopoulos' takedowns will be the key to dictating this fight. Karolina Kowalkiewicz has decent takedown defense at 75%. So we're going to have to see who wins that battle, because I think that ultimately dictates the fight. Post-fight, the odds indicate that. Kowalkiewicz, definitely the better striker. Demopoulos, better ground game. I'm going to trust Kowalkiewicz to defend those takedowns because, again, Demopoulos doesn't have the best takedown accuracy. Kowalkiewicz has decent takedown defense. So statistically, that would tell you she should be able to keep it on the feet. And also, Kowalkiewicz has been looking good with the striking lately. She's going to have 5 inches in reach to her advantage. She's going to be able to use that to stuff most of Demopoulos' takedowns, as she stuffs most of Demopoulos' takedowns, I should say. I think the dog is definitely live here. Vanessa Demopoulos as the underdog is definitely live. Kowalkiewicz looked really bad during her 5-fight losing streak. And Demopoulos could, in fact, get a takedown game going or have good aggressive moments on the feet. But I'm going to trust Kowalkiewicz here. Better striker, high IQ, looks rejuvenated. And I think she's going to continue this second run that she's on.
Yeah, you got to look at the Demopoulos, though. Those she has the takedowns, and one big thing she has on her side, she has that dog in her, man. Like, she has that fight. If there's one round, if it goes to the third round, they're split. She's gonna dog it out, and she's gonna try to get that win. She's gonna fight for your money, basically. And again, she does have a good ground game, but she needs to get it there. And as Harris indicated, she doesn't have the best takedown entries, the best takedown percentages. She's not really getting these girls to the mat. And I'm not really impressed with her, to be honest, aside from the fact that she's physically strong. And if she can get on top of you, I think she is very, very effective. She can hold you there for the whole round. And she does have submissions as well. On the other side, Karolina only loses to good fighters, right? She did have that fight. I think it was five. Yeah, how many fights? A 5-fight losing streak. But again, that was to Jessica Penny. I thought she should have won that fight, but she got armbarred. But that was Zhao Ninian, Alexa Grasso, Michelle Watterson, Jessica Andrade. Like, these are good fighters aside from Penny. Claudia Gadelia, Joanna Young Jacek. So she's only losing to good fighters. And Vanessa isn't on anyone's level there except for Jessica Penny. And I think Carolina went back to the drawing board, improved some things because she looks far better physically. She looks a bit stronger, less flail. And in this fight, I think her 1-2s or straight punches will be huge in this fight. Demopoulos kind of throws her punches from the side. And I think the quicker punch to the target from Karolina, the 1-2s is going to be really effective in this fight. Plus, Karolina looks like she's improved her grappling tremendously since how she was before. She's getting takedowns on these fighters. She's getting top control. She's taking the back now. And so it's definitely a situation where she's rounded out her game. She addressed her issues, and she's definitely a different fighter. And I think this is a fight that she could win. I'm not high on Demopoulos. Again, Demopoulos could win, though, because she has that dog. But I think Karolina's the more skilled fighter here. So I got to roll with Karolina here to keep it on the feet enough. And I think on the feet, I think she's going to outstrike her with the straight punches.
Final fight of our prelims, Maheshate versus Viacheslav. Borshchev for Maheshate, unanimous decision loss to Rafa Garcia. That was back in December. He's a striker through and through. Looks pretty controlled, light on his feet, fights at range. Doesn't really have the highest level of activity, more of a methodical technical striker, good technique as well. He does force the pace sometimes, though. He can be explosive, and that can leave him exposed defensively. But he is a really good counterpuncher, and he has good power. That always makes him a threat on the return, regardless of that pressure coming from his opponent. But like I said, he's a striker, pretty one-dimensional, doesn't have a ground game, poor takedown defense as well. Just striker, pure, through and through. For Borshchev, 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Mike Davis back in October. He has a good sharp jab. It's well timed. It's accurate. It's part of his offense. It's an active part of his offense. He has an active leg kick as well. Good counter puncher. Good combinations. Good lateral movement. Good power too. 5 of his 6 wins are via KO, TKO. But like Maheshate, he also has lousy takedown defense. He is also a very one-dimensional fighter. So we're looking at 2 one-dimensional fighters, 2 strikers, and that's going to make this one hard to predict. I think the good thing is that they're both going to get the style of fight that they want. They won't be challenged by takedowns. They won't be challenged by takedown attempts. The bad thing is that neither fighter is really too reliable. Borshchev should be able to take advantage of a higher pace here. He also has, more of a commitment to that forward pressure, more of a commitment to dictating the pace. Maheshate could definitely catch him on the counter with good power, but Borshchev has never been knocked out before. I think he'll be able to take the best that Maheshate can throw at him, the same way that I think Maheshate can take the best that Borshchev will throw at him, right? So again, I'm looking at 2, relatively unreliable fighters, but I think that Borshchev is going to be able to dictate the pace of this fight, be the more active striker, be the more intentional striker, and get the job done. So Viacheslav Borshchev is my pick.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. This is going to be a striking battle. It's going to be who lands first, right? So it's going to be a Mortal Kombat Street Fighter type situation. Those are the hardest fights really to predict because in those fights, no matter how much homework you do, if both guys are mainly strikers, if both guys have finishes on their records, it could come down to who hits who first, right? Who lands that big shot. If the other guy can't take it, the fight's over, even if the other guy is the better guy. So these are the hardest fights, right? And an example is Drew Dober versus that farmer guy, man. I forgot his name. I picked him. What was his name?
I'm forgetting now.
You know what I mean? That was my underdog pick of that week. Was it
It's like
anyways?
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
something like
that was my underdog pick, right? So it's a situation like that where I thought Dober is the far better striker, but the other guy, if he lands, there could be problems, right? And that's how I look at this fight. I think Borshchev is the better striker, the more technical guy. He's the head trainer, striking coach at Team Alpha Male. Team Alpha Male has been looking good lately. Zhao and Yan looked really good striking, and also Yadong Song looked really good. And these are fighters that are fighting out of Alpha Male, so they've been looking good lately. And I think Borshchev is going to carry that on. I think he is the more technical, the better striker. Only one guy in his wins has seen a decision versus Maheshate, who's fought more, but 4 or 5 guys have seen a decision with that guy in his wins, right? And that just tells me that Borshchev is a bit more dangerous, and I'm going to bank on that in this fight here. Borshchev getting the win.
Let's move on to our main card. Again, 5 fights on the main card. Fight number 1, Diego Ferreira versus Michael Johnson. For Diego Ferreira, 3-fight losing streak. He hasn't competed since December 2021. Lost to Mateus Gamrot at that time. Muay Thai stance, likes to lead with his kicks, likes to fight coming forward. He's usually going to be that fighter from the, fighting from the center of the octagon. The boxing is okay. He is a bit slow. Likes to use that jab, though. Pretty effective with it. Combinations are pretty solid as well. And his clinch is good. His BJJ is good. He's a 3rd-degree black belt, so very legitimate. Very good grappler. Not afraid to pull guard. One of those types of grapplers, Brazilian. So that doesn't surprise me. Very active guard at that. Not really the strongest wrestler, though. We see his numbers there, less than a takedown per fight. Also doesn't really have the best takedown defense, although he is scrambling, good at scrambling and good at getting back up as well. Michael Johnson, on the other hand, unanimous decision win over Mark Diakiese back in December. We know his MO. He's an excellent boxer, good striking, quick hands, southpaw, good movement, high striking IQ as well. He has looked refreshed over his past couple of fights. We know he's sharp. We know he's patient. Again, speaking to that IQ, 80% takedown defense as well. So he is going to be one of those guys that are able to sprawl and keep fights on the feet. If he does get taken down, he's had a lot of problems with guys with submission attempts. So that could be something to watch out for in this fight, but historically good takedown defense. He's also been very effective, like I said, at keeping fights standing. Dangerous opponent for anyone. You got to like the underdog value on Michael Johnson here. If you're sort of breaking this fight down, half of his losses are via submission. So yes, you do want to be very weary of that. Ferreira can make something happen in that regard, but I'm asking myself, how is Diego Ferreira going to get himself in that position? Doesn't really have the best takedown defense. Again, echoing the same message, Michael Johnson has good takedown defense on top of that. Ferreira striking is decent. He can absolutely keep up. We've seen guys that, are not as good strikers as Michael Johnson be able to keep up with him with the striking. But we still have to acknowledge Michael Johnson as one of the better strikers in the UFC. I don't see him losing a striking battle here. Both fighters are vets. Both fighters are, potentially past their prime. Diego Ferreira is the older fighter here, but Ferreira has not competed in 18 months, whereas Michael Johnson fought 5 months ago. So I think that is going to be a big factor here. I'm expecting Michael Johnson to be sharper, to be the better striker, to be able to keep it on the feet, and also to be more durable throughout the fight as well. I think there's good value on Michael Johnson, so I'm going to go with the underdog, Michael Johnson.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, man. I like Michael Johnson in this spot. I think he can dog it out, man. I think he can keep it on the feet. Don't throw any kicks. You don't need to throw kicks to allow Ferreira to grab a kick, take you down with a kick. Because if Ferreira gets you down, he definitely has the ability to finish you. And Michael Johnson has been finished many times by submissions. Off his back, Michael Johnson doesn't really offer much. He just his best plan is to get back to his feet. But I think he has good takedown defense, and he has a really good gym that he works with. So he does have the training partners to get prepared for Ferreira. Something about Diego, man, he seems like he aged his last couple of fights. And he hasn't fought in a while, right? And now he's coming back at 38. Michael has been active, and he looked pretty young in his last couple fights. And I even thought he beat Jamie Malarkey close, but I thought he should have got that first round. I think in this fight, I got to go with Michael Johnson. I think he's going to dog it out, keep it on the feet, have the distance that you need, and just keep him at range and box. And I think if he can do that, I don't think Ferreira at this point can keep up with Michael Johnson. Not many can. So I'm going to go Michael Johnson, underdog, to get the win here.
Second fight of our main card, Andre Fialho versus Joaquin Buckley. Welterweight fight here for Fialho. He lost to Muslim Salikov back in November. Always got to highlight his power. He is introduced as a boxer. 13 of his 16 wins are via KO, TKO. Likes to stay in front of you, likes to control center, good in and out movement. Fakes are there, the feints are there, the head movement is there. Just going back to that boxing background. Pretty composed too, all things considered. He is relatively one-dimensional. He is going to stay in front of you. He's going to look to strike with you. Again, primarily hands at that. But he is pretty good in that one dimension, right? We know that Daniel Cormier gives him credit for having legitimate wrestling, but he hasn't landed any takedown in 5 UFC fights. I can't recall him even attempting a takedown. Just 71% takedown defense as well. So if he has it, I haven't seen it. It's not something I can rely on as being part of his game. So until I see it, I'm just going to refer to him as a pretty one-dimensional fighter, as a pretty solid boxer. Joaquin Buckley, on the other hand, 2-fight losing streak now. He lost to Chris Curtis back in December. Pretty explosive. He has solid boxing, solid overall striking, good constant pressure on his opponents. Strong, typically shorter fighter, stockier frame, has decent speed, light on the feet, good movement as well. Good constant level changes and fakes in his attack. The head movement is there as well as he makes his way inside. We look at the takedown numbers at 1.2 takedowns per. That would tell you he has it, but I wouldn't put too much stock into that number. Almost all of those takedowns were landed in one fight versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. So Joaquin Buckley is very much a striker as well. And the cardio is there. His will to win is there, not afraid to engage, to try to get the better of his opponents. And that might be the key to this fight. First, I do want to highlight it's a new weight class for Joaquin Buckley. He's coming down to 170 pounds in this one. He normally fought at 185. I think this makes sense. Not really the biggest 185er, but something definitely to note. Now, striking-wise, I think Buckley can fight a similar fight that Salikov fought against Fialho. And I'm only referring to the striking because Salikov, of course, was able to implement the clinch as well. But being the faster striker, being more effective from the outside, outpointing Fialho, though these are things that I can see Buckley doing. We know that again, Buckley won't have that clinch component, that takedown component the way Salikov did, but the striking similarities I can see happening in this fight. I think this fight is going to be about who catches who first. 4 of 6 losses via KO TKO on both sides. Both of these fighters have 6 losses overall, but I still like Joaquin Buckley here. Fialho starts to slow down. He winds up too much. He gets predictable with his shots. I think that Buckley should be able to be the quicker fighter here, like I mentioned, the fresher fighter as well as the fight progresses. And, the fight that you're going to trust a little bit more to kind of, get it done for you, dog it out, that kind of thing. I think Joaquin Buckley is going to get a win in this new weight class.
Yeah, I like this drop down in weight for Buckley. At middleweight, he's always been dwarfed by these guys. Middleweight, the new middleweights are like 6'2" now, 6'1", 6'3". Buckley being 5'10" fits in perfect at this weight class. And he looks like he could cut some weight when he fought at middleweight. I think in this fight, the big thing to look at is the footwork from Joaquin Buckley. This guy moves around really well. And when you look at Fialho, he's kind of cement shoes, right? He's kind of heavy on his feet. But again, he gets off a lot of power with that strategy. But if he doesn't land, you can kind of easily move around on him. And I think Buckley has the perfect style here to win here. I think Buckley's at this weight class is going to pack the power here really to hurt these guys. Because again, he's hurting 185 pounders. So again, he should be able to hurt these guys. And the size advantage is not going to be there. Buckley might even get some takedowns, but just the movement on the feet and the danger and the activity that Buckley brings. Yeah, I see him being too much for Fialho, man. I like Joaquin Buckley. Aside from a fluky punch by Fialho, I don't think Fialho has a shot here.
Let's move on to our third fight then of the main card, Emily Ducote versus Lupita Godinez. It's a catchweight fight, 120 pounds for this one. We know that both of these women typically fight at 115. For Emily Ducote, she had a unanimous decision loss versus the main eventer, Angela Hill. That was back in December. Patient on the feet, has an active jab. Her boxing is pretty clean. Her combinations are pretty clean. Some calf kicks incorporated in her game. Otherwise, expect a boxing approach in her stand-up. She has good footwork to go along with it, good timing, good counter punching. She prefers more of a technical style of matchup, so might not really be the best at handling pressure. And very much a stand-up artist. I've seen her land some takedowns. I have seen, or she does have, I should say, a number of submission wins on her resume as well. And she does have active ground and pound, so that is something to note. But very much a stand-up artist stylistically. Lupita Godinez, on the other hand, is one of those fighters that, pretty good on paper across the board. She had a split decision win over Cynthia Calvillo just over a month ago, so she's getting right back in there. Solid boxing skills, decent movement, good accuracy on her punches. She throws good combinations as well. Again, the wrestling skills are there. The takedowns are there. Almost 4 takedowns per fight. Willing to stay committed to that takedown attempt as well. That can put her in favorable clinch positions with cage control, even if she doesn't land those takedowns. I don't really like Godinez at any weight other than 115, though. So the 120 catch weight is something to note. It does make it a bit more predictable, difficult, I should say, to predict. I think we learned something about Emily Ducote in her last fight. I think that she has a problem with strikers who put on a higher pace than she does, with better movement. Of course, saying a lot because not a lot of fighters can replicate what Angela Hill can do. And to that point, Godinez doesn't necessarily check those boxes. I don't love Lupita Godinez's decision making in her fights, and I can see Ducote being the much more effective striker. Her technique is cleaner, whereas Lupi's kind of going for those bigger shots. But what I do like about Lupita Godinez is that, and also what I anticipate for this fight, is that I think she will be the one dictating the pace, even with the striking. I can see Ducote being a lot more reactive as a striker. And an X factor that I'm also considering for this fight is the fact that it's taking place at the UFC Apex. I think Godinez has been trying to kind of play to the crowd a bit in her last few fights. I feel like she's looked lackluster in her last few fights, but the Apex environment is a different environment. I think it's going to allow for better coaching, better decision making, plus that smaller ring, I think is going to help her be more effective as the fighter pushing the pace, as the fighter that can land the takedowns, as, again, the better overall MMA fighter on paper. So I got to go Lupita Godinez on this one, but be careful because Lupita Godinez makes mistakes, makes bad decisions, but I think she should get it done in this one.
Yeah, you got to be really careful with Lupita, man. As good as she is, man, like she should be a much bigger favorite if she was a smarter fighter. She has horrible IQ. The Angela Hill fight you seen, she didn't even shoot 1 takedown, and like that's crazy. And she's the type of girl that could take down a lot of these girls in this division, and just get wins with top control and just getting takedowns. She has high level wrestling, and you don't know if she's going to use it. Right. In that Angela Hill fight, it almost seems like someone paid her to not use her wrestling, because why wouldn't she use her wrestling to win? Like, don't you get more money with a win bonus? Like, it didn't make sense to me why she didn't even shoot for a takedown. In this fight, if she doesn't shoot for a takedown, this fight, the odds make sense, right? Because that's what I guess Vegas is expecting here. Because if she doesn't shoot for a takedown, it is a close fight. But at the back of your mind, she could get a takedown. So you got to have Lupita as a favorite. But realistically, if she doesn't go for a takedown in this fight, I think it's 50-50. I think Ducote has that dog in her. I've been watching her in Bellator. She's that fighter. She's scrappy. But when you watch her fight against Alea McFarlane, she's had issues with grapplers. I think Lupi needs to go that route. I think Lupi can. I think Lupi's the better wrestler, and I think the takedowns will be there if she shoots. I think Lupi's going to be strong. They're both in the 115-pound weight class, moving up to going up to this weight, right? So they're both ideally the same size. I think Lupi uses the takedowns. I think she can get her down pretty easily, and I think she's going to look like a big favorite if she goes that route. But I can't feel confident because her IQ is not there, right? So she could be getting paid off by people, but based on what's on paper, what she has available, Lupi should get this done.
Co-main event, Edmund Shabazian versus Anthony Hernandez. Shabazian beat Dalchalungiambula back in December. Good stand-up, good power. He's going to throw a lot into his strikes. Still a patient striker, though. Solid jab as well. He has a boxing-heavy style. I mean, that seems to be the theme throughout this card. Mainly hands. Again, good jab. He's going to look for those feints. He's going to look for those level changes to set up his attack. And good calf kick shown in his last few fights as well. He is dangerous in that first round. Almost all of his wins are via round 1 KO, or TKO, I should say. 12 wins overall, 9 of them are in round 1. One of them is in round 2 as well. Again, he's pretty patient in his approach, though. So don't expect a fighter that's just going to go out there and go for broke, so to speak. Also, good wrestler. Over 2 takedowns per fight. We have seen him struggle against other takedown artists, so that is something to be mindful of. To that point, just 65% takedown defense, but also still just 25 years old, right? So this can be a fighter that we're going to see make improvements on a fight-over-fight basis. And he's going up against Anthony Hernandez, who's looked good on his 3-fight winning streak. He beat Marc-Andre Burialt back in September. He's introduced as a striker, has decent hands, has decent power, has decent combinations. The in and out movement is there, but he likes to put that pressure on. Almost blitzes in at times. High activity, forces the pace. He's all action at times. Good knowledge on the ground as well. He's landed 16 takedowns in his last 2 fights. He's definitely proven himself with his grappling ability already after his win versus Rodolfo Vieira 3 fights ago. Expect a lot of takedown attempts. Expect chain wrestling, expect positional improvements, submission attempts as well. We see a very high submission average on paper. Good cardio as well with that pace that he puts on, which is pretty impressive. Hernandez, again, he's looked good in his last few fights, but I'll be honest, these odds surprised me a bit. I thought they'd be a lot closer. I usually study the fighters before I look at the odds. I thought Shabazian was going to be the favorite, believe it or not. I think that Hernandez has a grappling advantage. Otherwise, in my eyes, this is a 50-50 fight between 2 fighters with pretty similar skill sets. You look at a Hermanson versus Shabazian fight, for example, and you can see where Anthony Hernandez can essentially have, the blueprint to have a similar result where he keeps up with the striking or he's slightly ahead in the striking. Plus, he's able to land those takedowns. But I think there's too much value on the dog here for me to pass it up. Shabazian, he took that year off after his losing streak for the sake of making improvements. His boxing heavy style and his distance control, I think, could be 2 key factors to help him keep the fight on the feet. And again, similar skill sets. So Hernandez is just as susceptible to takedowns as Shabazian is, right? Shabazian may have moments where he's the one landing takedowns. No real reason other than too much value on the dog. I think, again, 50-50 fight. And if I'm looking at it logically, I'm seeing a bigger underdog. I'm going to have to side with the bigger underdog. So I think Anthony Hernandez is going to be a little overvalued here. I think this could be a bit of a trap to get people to throw him on parlays. But I'm going to go with the underdog, Edmund Shabazian. I think he gets it done.
I think Hernandez is gonna run through this guy, man. I think he's gonna destroy Edmund Shabazian. I think Shabazian is gonna have his chances when they're striking. He's the far better striker, and he's gonna have to bring some power here to get the knockout. Hernandez can get finished, and he's reckless. Hernandez is reckless with his style when he shoots for takedowns. Shabazian being slick can definitely catch him, but I have Hernandez 75-25. Like 7 times out of 10, I think Hernandez wins this fight. The big thing with Hernandez is the pace, is what he puts on these fighters. If he gets Shabazian down in that first round, and really pounds him out, Shabazian's going to get up all lumped up and look defeated, right? And I see that happening here. I think Hernandez uses that pace, that grappling, that wrestling. I don't think Shabazian can stop it. And I think Anthony gets the win, man. I think he's going to run through Edmund. So I like Anthony Hernandez in the spot.
All right, let's go main event. At that point, let's talk Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill. We know this is a fight that was supposed to take place, I think, a week or two ago, but it was moved into the main event slot for this fight week instead. So let's start with the analysis. Mackenzie Dern had that majority decision loss to Zhao Nanyan back in October. We know she's a grappling specialist. Her striking is improved. It is cleaner. It is crisper. Her technique could still be better, but she does like to put on that pressure and pace with her striking. She wants to close distance. She wants to look for that clinch, and then she's going to want to look to get the fight to the mat by any means possible. To that point, she's not a great wrestler by any means. She's not good with landing takedowns. Just over half a takedown per fight, dismal 11% on the accuracy side of things. It is worth noting that she did land 2 takedowns in her last fight. So, of course, that's probably the biggest key to her game to improve. And when she's on the ground, I mean, very dangerous. Great at making positional improvements. The ground and pound is improved as well. Also really good at finding that submission opportunity. Again, the numbers, the submission average numbers support that. Angela Hill, on the other hand, a lot of contrast in her fighting style, much more of a striker. She's on a 2-fight winning streak now. She beat Emily Ducote back in December. She's a Muay Thai fighter. She's really good on the feet, good continuous movement, moves well laterally, uses a lot of fakes and feints to set up her attack. I like that she throws punches in combinations as well. Keeps a good distance, has a good long jab, solid high clinch, good takedown defense as well at 77%, good ability to get up if she is taken down. And she has really good cardio, even for a 5-round fight here. She can fight at a high pace the entire fight, and we're going to have to see how that wears on her opponents, right? Good fight, close fight here. My concern for Angela Hill is that this fight, if she plays the same game plan as she did against, Verna Jandiroba, as an example, then she's setting herself up to lose, right? But I think there's a huge difference between that fight and this fight. For this fight, Dern's wrestling is a lot worse. Jandiroba can get fighters to the ground. Dern cannot, right? So not really the best at setting up those takedowns. I can see Angela Hill avoiding that and staying out of the way of that. Dern is good at putting the pressure on, and that's where I would be worried on the side of Angela Hill, because again, one of those fighters, we kind of talked about it with Lupi, where you question the decisions sometimes. Like, why does she want to grapple with this person that she's much better at striking with? So if Dern closes the distance and Hill wants to play grappling, then she's going to set herself up for failure. But I think that Angela Hill is going to be able to make the better decisions here, is going to be able to make the right decisions in this fight. She showed me that she can take on a pressure type of style versus a better striker than Dern, when I'm referring to Lupi Godinez, right? Dern isn't really a striking threat. Plus the 2-fight winning streak, gives Angela Hill some momentum. two fights where she really has been able to show her striking. So that could help her, get like something could click in her mind to say, hey, I got to continue using my striking. It's definitely working for me. And that could help her decision making, right? I think this fight will give her those same opportunities as long as she doesn't make any silly mistakes. So that's kind of the theme for this fight for me. Hill should get it done as long as she doesn't make mistakes. Can I guarantee she won't make mistakes? No, I can't. That's why she is the underdog in this one. But Dern, I mean, you're not really liking Dern against these higher level fighters that can kind of keep up with her ground game, stop her from imposing her ground game, plus proving to be more effective on the striking side of things than she is. So I got to go with the underdog, Angela Hill. I think she gets it done. I think she's going to make the right decisions, and she is the better striker in the situation who should be able to keep it on the feet. Angela Hill's my pick.
Yeah, man. All for the last all week, I was on Angela Hill. I was on the Angela Hill side for the same reason Harris mentioned. But I changed it here the last couple hours, man. I just looked at some of Hill's fights and some of the takedowns that people have gotten on her, and I can see Dern landing some of those takedowns. Dern tried some of these takedowns against Marina, didn't work, but I think against Angela Hill, it's going to be easier to get the takedowns on Angela Hill, and once she gets on top, she can easily get a 10-8 round if she gets a takedown early. Also, the finish is always there every round, the threat. 5 rounds, I think, benefits Dern. She has more chances to get that takedown. Again, she's looking to finish, man. And when you look at female jiu-jitsu, she's one of the top 5 of all time in the history of female jiu-jitsu. Like, she's on a different level. And if she gets on top of Hill doesn't really have the best ground defense off her back. So I think Dern can really, I think Dern has a shot here, man. So I'm going to go with Dern here. I think she's going to be able to get some takedowns going. And I think the grappling disparity is going to be huge. So I'm going to go Mackenzie.
All right, let's take it to Vegas. At that point in time, let's talk some underdogs. Let's talk some parlay action. Of course, let's start with the underdogs. And I will preface by saying it's a tricky card. A lot of close fights, a lot of dog value. But let me read them out. Sato versus Gorimbo, that's actually a pick'em. So we will consider either fighter to be the underdog there. Victoria Leonardo is the underdog. Chase Hooper has now become the underdog versus Nick Fiore. Ilir Latifi is the underdog. Gilbert Urbina is a small underdog. Vanessa Demopoulos is a small underdog. Maheshate is a relatively small underdog. Same thing with Michael Johnson. Andre Fialho is an underdog. Emily Ducote is an underdog. Edmund Shabazian and Mackenzie Dern. Sorry, and Angela Hill, I should say.
Okay, I'm going to go with Michael Johnson.
Michael Johnson, good value there. I won't pick him as my underdog, but I will agree that I actually do think he's probably the best value underdog on this card. I'm going with Edmund Shabazian. A little less confident after your analysis, but I'm still going to stick with it. Edmund Shabazian as my underdog pick. And in terms of parlays, who are you taking a look at?
I'm going to go with Natália Silva, Anthony Hernandez, and Joaquin Buckley.
All right, so we have Anthony Hernandez, Joaquin Buckley, and Natália Silva. 3 fights at a 2.27. That means that $100 will get you a $227 return. For our bigger bettors, $250 will get you a total return of $568. In terms of my parlay, some similar fights. I'm also going with Natália Silva. I'm also going with Joaquin Buckley. But I am rolling the dice a little bit on my third pick, and I'm going to side with Viacheslav Borshchev. Those 3 fights is going to be a 2.62. So that means that $100 will get you a total return of $262. And for our bigger bettors, $250 will get you a total return of $656. So let's officially sign off on that note. This has been UFC Fight Night. Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill, your full card prediction video, presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. Again, make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video if you have not done so already. We definitely would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel as well here at Boxing MMA Picks. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. How do you feel about our picks? What parlays are you looking at? What props are you looking at? What additional conversations do you want to have about making sure you make the right bets for this card? More than happy to have that conversation with you in the comments. But again, let's officially sign off. UFC Fight Night, Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill. Full card prediction video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris, and in our usual fashion, let's get this money.
Let's get it.